And chapter 10, Building to the Bulge. Too quiet for comfort. The following describes the buildup of events preceding the Battle of the Bulge. They occurred while the battlefront action was going through what my unit likened to an unannounced truce or intermission. The German panzer tanks and infantry initially launched their attack with great intensity in this very sector of Bollingen. The 99th Infantry Division, 99th Infantry Division, newly introduced from the States and having no prior experience in combat, would suffer heavy losses in defending against the overwhelming German offensive soon after setting up their position. That sudden eruption on the night of December 16, 1944, was the beginning of what would be known as the Battle of the Bulge. By then, the 9th Infantry Division was repositioned near Aachen, Germany, to face the German assault in that location. Building to the Bulge conditions had been noticeably quiet for several days along a tactical line located among the protected rolling hills, an area assigned to the 9th Infantry Division with orders to hold and observe. Our division was thinly spread along an invisible front, possibly chosen by our high command to allow us a few days of badly needed rest, and believing the area was lightly maintained by the Wehrmacht as well. At times, we would question why there was so few of us in this sector, exchanging comments such as, "Why is it so still out there to the east?" Were the Krauts aware how little opposition they were facing on this part of the front? And what were our people in SHAEF, which is the acronym for Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, thinking? Fighting had been at a high level until then. To add to our concern, we noticed the German army had been maintaining complete radio silence for several days. A German attack in force would likely overrun our position, resulting in a possible major breakthrough of the Allied line. This caused a great amount of anxiety to spread throughout our ranks, waiting for the other boot to drop. Maybe we were more intuitive than our higher-ups. Subtitled, Before the Bulge. Winter was beginning with vengeance by late November of 1944. The 9th Recon Troop had been making good progress in our advance into Germany, well beyond the Belgian border. Our hopes were that the rumor was true and that we soon would be issued the heavy wool overcoat commonly known among the troops as the horse blanket. The lack of any real opposition as we patrolled farther each day gave us mixed feelings, wondering if maybe the German army has decided to call it quits. At the same time, our training, experience, and intuition were alerting and sharpening our instincts to be wary of a possible ambush, always a prominent thought as we continued to patrol unknown enemy territory. With each day, our knowledge of the German soldiers' behavior taught us to never let down our guard. or become overconfident. The patrols were not always eventful, albeit intense and with the usual element of fear. No two patrols ever on foot or in an armored car column were ever a duplicate of earlier ones. We were trained to be watchful of the unexpected. While often an expected event did rise, and it was the unexpected that made us more vulnerable. The eeriness of losing contact with the enemy deepened our worries that a trap was becoming more likely. But we continued on orders in the direction of Aachen, with perhaps a regiment or two of the 9th Infantry Division prepared to take up position behind us. The men backing us were nowhere in sight, of course, but we always felt assured that they would move up to support our unit at the appropriate time. Keeping in touch was essential. The cold and snow produced a deep freeze that military authorities later verified as the coldest winter, 1944-1945, ever recorded in Northern Europe to that time. And by November of 1944, Allied troops facing the German armies in Western Europe numbered over 3 million, including airmen. When the opportunity arose to get some sleep, the task of lying on the snow covering the ground became a strange effort in willpower. Just the thought added to our misery. The frozen ground was almost impossible to dig into, and rarely throughout the winter could pup tents be erected to offer some protection from the weather. On one occasion, I remember experience uncontrollable chills, the shivers, a terribly distressing condition. I'm not sure which was worse, the trembling or the usual agonizing torment of a nearly frozen body. Shrapnel found in my shoulder later had gone unnoticed by me due to the numbness or absence of feeling, a blessing in a way. The hot metal cauterized the wound, which prevented any significant bleeding. There were other situations that had to be attended to on a regular and sometimes not so regular basis, that being the process of body's waste elimination. It became a perilous ordeal at times. One of our guys from a farming community with a great sense of humor said he wrote his mom to say how he missed home and even the bedpan, and claims she wrote back and said, "You missed the bedpan when you were at home too." The next subtitle is Rare But Well Done Dinner, Thanksgiving of 1944. The German buildup to the Bulge was taking place as we approached Thanksgiving Day in 1944. The day came and went like most, but not without a comforting reminder of the first-class dinner handed out around noon. In typical Army fashion, our meal was served in layers with string beans, peas, and carrots partially hidden under mashed potatoes and gravy, mixing with the dessert. There just wasn't much surface area in our dinnerware, quotation marks, two halves of an open mess kit. But the cooks had worked hard to serve this exceptional meal, and I don't think there was a single complaint from the entire group. It was almost like eating at a 5-star restaurant, if we let our minds wander. The main entree, of course, was turkey, providing us with a touch of America in this baneful and faraway place. There were no gripes as we made our way down the chow line in high spirits. Subtitle: Patrols. Back in the Bellingen area, the 9th Recon Troop, all 155 of us, spent the day observing the far distant hills to the east, but not only the slightest of movement with our field glasses. We did not, our men were dug in but stretched out for miles. A mobile patrol of several jeeps and 3 of us men each rotated around the clock from the command post in town, each covering a separate given area. Between shifts, we remained on alert, of course, but enjoyed the rare indoor comfort of at night of sleeping on the floor of an unheated Belgian home near the command post. Winter came early in 1944, with freezing temperatures ultimately reaching record lows for 44 and 45. For now, the calendar indicated it was autumn, but the weather acted otherwise. On patrol one night, while my 3 buddies and I cautiously checked out the surroundings, the driving having been assigned to me, we headed in an easterly direction. There was a deepening concern in our thoughts and hushed conversation that night due to the long period of eerie silence that had persisted for a number of days. Off in the distance, we had noticed a building as we were patrolling in a jeep. This building that appeared to be a small grain mill or whatever in this farming community several miles from town, from Bullingen. It immediately attracted our attention because of a faint light along the 2 vertical edges of the 2nd floor window shade. Our Jeep had the typical dim slit lights for night driving, giving a very limited amount of illumination, but seeing any other type of light was extremely rare. Obviously, this unusual situation had to be investigated. We stopped in front, and the 3 men entered the building while I stayed with the vehicle. We didn't expect that this type of structure would be occupied at night, but much to the men's astonishment, found the upstairs room not only with a small light bulb burning, but an electric iron, clothes-pressing iron, still warm. The cord had been pulled from the plug receptacle. A search around the entire area produced no other sign of anyone's presence, but someone or more most certainly had been there, and very recently. Even though our patrol otherwise was relatively uneventful, it increased our earlier concern that an unfavorable condition was ominously building. The next night on patrol again, we stopped after hearing the sound of boots walking toward us on the street ahead. We shouted for the intruders to stop. They spoke out in a foreign tongue. Since they did not attempt to conceal themselves, 3 of them, we let them come close enough for us to see and scrutinize them as best we could in the darkness. Their language was other than German, as were their uniforms. The men calmly told us in halting English that they were Belgian police officers, heading back to their small village to the west. Having thought it over many times, I wonder whether we had been duped by their comments and naively allowed them to carry on. I'm inclined to think these men most likely were the ones in the old mill building the previous night, pressing their phony uniforms and in the process putting them on over their German military uniforms. Even though I reported the incident, I heard nothing further from our CP personnel. We have a little more to go for this chapter. It's subtitled Relieving Stress Before the Battle. After a heavy snowfall around December 10th, 1944, we couldn't curb our youthful exuberance and delight in frolicking, that's a tough one, frolicking around. The fun of throwing snowballs was joined in by no other than Lieutenant Egan, who seemed to relish the therapy as much as we did. But the rank and file of which I was a part needed to understand that officers must be respected and kept on a level of superiority, even in times of recreation, a momentary oversight on my part. It never occurred to me that it would be an infraction of military regulations if one dumped a load of snow down Lieutenant Egan's back. He seemed like fair game to me, since he was tossing snowballs along with the rest of us. However, the look on Lieutenant Egan's face made it obvious that I had broken the rules, but no big deal, I figured. He'll just forget about it. The next day, I was called into Captain Ortoff's office, a makeshift storefront building. I thought it was to answer charges filed by Lieutenant Egan. The lieutenant was not there. Captain Ortoff, his aide, and his jeep driver were the only ones present. Fully expecting this to be a summons for a court-martial, I stood at attention in front of Captain Ortoff's table, waiting intensely for him to say something. His first remark was, "At ease, Private Beach." It was easy for him to say. "Now," he said, "tell me what happened yesterday." The captain continued. After explaining about my snow job on Lieutenant Egan, I thought he also intended to ask me about the 3 Belgian police officers. He said, "Yes, and that's it, huh?" His next question was to ask what I thought of the Thanksgiving dinner, and then kindly dismissed me. Wow, what a guy. And what relief. Captain Ortoff was aware, of course, but unknown to me at the time, that I would later be advised in a written notification from General Lewis A. Craig that I had been awarded the Silver Star Medal for gallantry in action on October 12, 1944, in the Hürtgen Forest of Western Germany, and there would be no court-martial. Fillmore Ortoff We was promoted to captain and commander of the 9th Recon on October 27th, 1944, replacing our Captain James D. Long, who was killed in action in France on August 2nd, 1944. Most of our men did not learn immediately of this major loss. Possibly the news was held back to prevent undermining the troops' morale at the time. By now it was obvious to me Lieutenant Egan had not filed a charge against me. I owe an apology to that fine, misunderstood officer who was a real benefit to all his men.